All right, what's up, ladies and gentlemen, to another open live Q&A. My name is Mr. McLogan, and today's live stream, I am happy to be able to do two live streams in a week in a row. But I will let you know that next week I will not be doing the live stream. My Sunday schedule is just not looking like it's going to happen. So I want to give you guys some advance notice, but I'm really happy and proud of myself for being able to pull this off. I will say that we went to the water park earlier today with the kids, and I was like, oh man, I got the live stream again. And I think I'm going to do 8 o'clock. And then I got really tired after we got back, and I'm like, oh man, I don't know if I can do it. But I did spend some time on Saturday going back through, and I really, really apologize. This is completely all my fault, but so many of you guys have sent in questions for me to be able to answer on these live streams. And sometimes I haven't gotten to them. Sometimes, we didn't run out of time, and I had over 150 questions that I had still not reviewed. And I apologize for that. One thing I used to do on all my live streams was I would always continue going live until I finished like all the questions that were submitted. Now I realized that that was a terrible mistake because there's always infinite many questions that students will always continue to go ahead and ask. So yeah, sometimes my live streams like 2 or 3 years ago would go like for 2-3 hours, and I'd be up until like midnight, and I had to teach the next day. So, but it just didn't, it's not, I guess, feasible at this stage to be able to go through each and every question that students do submit. However, there are some really, really good questions that I am going to make sure that I can get either on this live stream for students that, want a little bit of like watching me kind of go through on some math and answering questions and help you out that way. And then also continue making them into some videos, which you guys will see on my channel. I think no, they're probably going to post on some of my secondary channels. Maybe some on my main channel. I don't know. We'll kind of see. But anyways, before I get into the math, I always like to put that on the second half of the live stream. But until then, I always like to go through you guys' questions, like whatever you guys are working on. Like my students are starting school tomorrow. Not my students, my children are starting school tomorrow. So they're very, very excited. We put them to bed a little bit earlier, and they're getting ready for the school year. So, that's exciting. And I know a lot of students around the world are kind of similar in the same boat. I know sometimes, year-round schooling or, wherever you are in the world might have a different time frame, and that's perfectly cool. But a lot of times, for a lot of people around this time frame is when we start thinking about that back to school and getting ourselves prepared. We're going to get some new teachers. We're going to get some new, rituals and routines that we got to get used to. And then also we have to feel like, crap, do I remember all the stuff that I needed to know from last year, and how am I going to do in the school year? So if you do have some questions about math or about, what you're going in through the school year, then feel free to put them just down in the chat below. And once I get them in the chat, then I can post out like a shout out like this for Sunny Boy X, and then therefore I can read your comment and give you a little bit of insight or advice or whatever the question or answer to your question may be. And if you have a math question, then go to brianmclogan.com/Q&A. I used to have that as an annotation. Let's see if I can still find that. I had that down below. Where is it? Oh, there it is. Let's see. Actually, I didn't get it. I got to delete. I have a whole bunch of these. There it is. Sorry for that. Yeah. So if you have a question, then go to brianmclogan.com/Q&A, and I'll do my best to go ahead and answer it. All right. So, well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Hey, Papa Calc, thank you so much for getting me through junior high. You are very, very welcome. And look forward to you continue your math and being there for you in the future. Andika, what's up, bro? Happy to see you. Araf, good to see you on as always. Thank you so much for being such a loyal subscriber and live stream person. Why am I having my chat thing in there? Let's actually move that around. So kind of crazy that I started watching in high school, and now 6 years ago I work as a pilot. Isn't that is actually pretty crazy. And I have no plans on stopping making YouTube videos at all. I really, really enjoy, teaching math and also making videos. And one thing I always thought was really, really cool. I remember when I was in, I guess I was in high school, and I remember we had a teacher, Mr. Granger, I believe it was. And the cool thing was like my buddies, one of my friends, his mom went to high school with him. I think actually in that same school. And I just thought it was like just the coolest thing. Like he'd been around, stayed in the area, and like had been working for so long, and like now he was like teaching his own kids, his friend's student or his friend's children. Um, and I never stayed around to be a teacher that long. I did think that was one of those like really, really cool things that if you have been a teacher for so long and then you see people that you taught and then you have their kids, like I thought that was something really, really special. And I think that's something really, really important about that, seeing teachers that have been in the classroom for that long, the impact that they have had on so many different children. And um, it wasn't in the cards for me as being a teacher, and that's perfectly fine. It is what it is. But I think the cool thing that I what I wanted to do, at least on the YouTube, was like, basically in that same respect, like, holy crap, like I was learning math from this guy like when I was in high school. And guess what? YouTube is still around and we're still using, your videos to, now help my children that are going through math. I think that's just like, I don't know. That's something for whatever reason I aspire to in the math world, to just to kind of have that legacy and to be making videos and content, for that long, that students can, they can kind of pass down that from their children. So I think that, I don't know, just one of those weird things that I kind of aspire to in that regard. So, um, but as as we're working or looking into getting ready for the school year, there's a couple things that I want students to always think about and always remember that I think it's really tough that when you enter into the new school year, there's a lot of unknowns. You don't know how the year is going to go. You don't know like what students are going to be, like what friends are in your class, or I mean, a lot of times now people know it's like social media, but at least back in the day, like it was a lot more difficult to communicate with everybody. See, but more importantly, not so much about your friends, but it's really about like the teachers, because you get so used to, and there's like an attachment that we have, like even if we didn't necessarily have a great experience, like we'd at least understood from the previous teachers like what we needed to do to be successful in their class. And I think it's kind of a scary proposition when we enter the new school years. We just don't know like what to expect and how we're going to do, and how hard actually is the class. How hard is going to be the teacher? Are they going to be really easy on grading, or are they going to be really hard on grading? So that's all natural, and it's all, part of the process. But I think one thing that I would always get a little bit frustrated as a teacher was anytime that once things started to get tough, a lot of students wanted to just give up. They either wanted to drop out of my class, or they wanted to get a different teacher, or they just wanted to like stop taking the class at all. I'm like, nope, this is going to ruin my GPA. I don't want to do it. And I will say, more often than not, um, majority of the students that I would have that conversation with, I advise that they should stay in the class. I advise that like, hey, we're going through some changes. There's some newer stuff, but I believe in you. I believe you're capable, and I will do everything I can to be able to help you be successful in this class. And for a majority of students that stayed, that's exactly right. Like they were able to overcome some of these initial, kind of issues and struggles, and they did perfectly fine, in my class. Obviously, there's always a case, students did not put forth the effort, or if they were seriously like over their head in that class, then I would advise too, like, hey, I don't think this class is right for you. But I think it's I think it's important just to have a little grace, but then also to make sure you do a little bit of reflection as you're getting into as you're getting into this new year, and you're kind of making those decisions and deciding like, hey, should I, stick this course out? Like, can I be successful with this teacher? Make sure you're having those conversations with them. And then also, as I mentioned, like reflect on yourself. Like, are you putting forth the effort? Are you doing the necessary work that you need to do to be successful in that course? And I think if you can make sure that you're putting in the work and doing what your teacher is asking, more often than not, you're going to be just fine. So that was just a little encouragement that I wanted to give for you, for those of you that are getting ready for into the school year. Let me adjust. There you go. Ah, yeah. this is so weird. Hey, Joanne, you're the reason I passed Algebra 2. Well, awesome. I'm so happy to be able to help you out. And I also, well, I don't know what you're taking next, but I do have so many videos, so many content videos that I'm planning on making this year for Algebra 2, pre-calculus, going also into even some calculus stuff. I gotta keep myself active, and I think sometimes it's easy to, especially when you're away from the teaching, not to do stuff that you haven't taught before. Like obviously when you're teaching inside the classroom, like there's certain content that's going to change. And it's like, all right, now you're, teaching, this topic. It's like, oh crap, I've never, taught from this, or we have a new book and there's going to be, newer problems and stuff like that. But when you're not a teacher, you kind of get, and like as of right now, I get to decide what I'm going to be making videos on, what types of problems. And it's easy to always just rely on stuff that I have previously always done. But I know for me to be a stronger instructor, as well as a stronger student of mathematics myself, I also have to continue pushing myself. And that's one of my goals for this upcoming year is to just continue working on some problems that are going to challenge me and challenge the way that I am explaining and working through problems, because I'm just not exposed to them like I used to when I was in the classroom, right? I'm in the classroom. There's always all these different problems that I'm seeing and that I got to prepare for my students. And I just don't have that in my, current circumstance. So that's one thing I definitely got to work on from here. Yes, I know. I love teaching. I love teaching calculus, and there's just so many great problems that you can go through on calculus. So I want to kind of go back through my notes and kind of rework things, and then take out some problems that I think would make some some good videos and put in from them there. So yeah, I'm really 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 excited to jump back into calculus. Hypercentered games, as I sometimes have trouble with word problems, but with normal algebra equations, I'm fine with it in math form. What is your best advice on solving these types of questions? So word problems is difficult for a lot of people. And I'll kind of do a comparison that I'll say with fractions. Like I can take a normal problem and students can understand the process going through it, right? And then, but I can throw in, and again, this isn't same thing, exact same word problems, but just for to kind of get some context. And then also I can throw in like some either really big numbers, or I can throw in some fractions, or whatever else, and I'll just throw the students off, and they're like, I have no idea what to do. And it's the exact same process, exact same problem. It's just now it is with some more difficult numbers. And the problem with it is a lot of students will struggle with this so hard, and we'll work through them, but also it takes a lot longer in the classroom to kind of go through, problem with maybe, let's say, some difficult problems. So the reality is students are not going to get a lot of practice with those problems, right? We're going to focus on the main problems that help them go through that process, right? Because not only does so many students struggle with it, it takes so much longer on the instruction in the classroom, you just don't have enough time in the day, and students really, really struggle with it, providing like extra practice. The same things with the word problems, right? I remember one time I was teaching something, and I asked the students, I'm like, hey guys, you want me to go over like more examples? And they're like, yes, like more examples of like everything. I'm like, well, there's not enough time, right? And even when I was teaching, I mean, we had 90-minute classes, which is a long time for a math class. But there's just not enough time for me to go over like every single type of scenario that we can do. And word problems is something that we take a common problem, as you mentioned, like the process, like how to do it and it's in algebraic form. But being able to break it down from a word problem and go through it is going to take a little bit longer. So your teachers are just not going to be able to cover as many of those examples. And then also we really want to focus on that algebraic method more than just always working on breaking down word problems. So the reality is you're not getting as exposed to word problems as much as the other stuff. So when you're not exposed to as much, or you don't have as much practice, it's naturally just not going to be something that many students are going to be as confident on. So my first response to you is getting some more practice, right? Even if you can, I remember there was this old textbook when I first started teaching. Every single like homework always had like a word problem. And I remember when I was teaching, like we were kind of like short on time, and I was like, guys, just skip the word problems. Like, let's just focus on the algebra stuff, and we'll skip the word problems. And then like we got rid of that book and we started teaching out other books. And then, but the more longer I became a teacher, the more I realized I was like, that was actually really, really bad, Mr. McLogan. I don't know why I was calling myself Mr. McLogan. I was just talking to myself. That was really, really bad because what I started doing actually on my own, once I started creating my own curriculum, I started adding word problems each and every day to the homework because I needed students to get practice because I didn't want them to receive a homework problem and then to be completely flustered and be like, I don't know how to do this, right? If you don't have any practice of breaking down word problems, then you're just not, it's naturally going to be something you're going to struggle at. So I think one thing is if you can, make sure that you're getting some extra practice and when working with word problems for whatever and everything you're learning. The sad thing is a lot of word problems are really, really poorly written. And again, it's hard. I tried even creating my own word problems and it was a disaster. Like for testing quizzes, I was like, oh, I'll just write out my own. And every single time, not every single time, but a lot of the times I created my own, they were just garbage questions and I had to throw them out because students would find the holes. They're like, this doesn't make sense. Or how, well, the words that you use is very, very important because they need to be very specific. So, but again, even with those word problems, you'll see a lot of patterns. And I think once you start working through a lot of word problems and you get like there's the fundamental breaking down, like underlining, extracting things, like I actually have a whole course written out on word problems that I really want to create or record. But there's a lot of things that you can do to help, like tips, and even Google search on YouTube. I'm sure there's some content out there. But I think in the end, when you start working through multiple examples with word problems, you start to see certain patterns that tip you off on how you're going to approach that problem and how you're going to solve it. So that was a really, really long answer for something that could have been said in one sentence, but practice, practice, practice. Do you know a way to combine a standard and vertex form of a quadratic equation as one? That's the best way I can explain it. Well, they're in different forms. So if you think about the standard form of a quadratic, that is just in the form of x squared. When you think of the vertex form, that's as the x is squared, but it's in binomial form. For instance, like if you had, a standard form in this case would be like x squared plus 3x plus 5. And vertex form could be like x plus 3 quantity squared plus 5. So no, you cannot combine them in their current form. So what you would need to do is take the vertex form, in my case, like x plus 5 squared. You take the x plus 5 quantity squared, and that means you need to multiply it out. So you need to do x plus 5 times x plus 5, expand that out, or that was x plus whatever, simplify it, and then you can combine those two forms. You could convert your vertex form your standard form into vertex form. So then you have two binomial squared, but the only way you'd be able to combine those two binomial squareds if they were both the same quantity being squared. For instance, if it was x plus 3 quantity squared plus x plus 3 quantity squared, you could combine them together to be 2x plus 3 quantity squareds. But if it's like x plus 1 quantity squared and x plus 5 quantity squared, you could not combine them. So the easiest thing to do would expand them out into both their standard forms and then combine your like terms. Hopefully that was helpful. If not, then go to brianmclogan.com/Q&A and I'll be happy to kind of give you a little bit more advice on that one. Hey, Mars, good to have you on. Yes, I can only imagine that can be so difficult because even as English as your main language, students struggle with them because how the language is used has to be very, very carefully written. And again, as I mentioned, like as a teacher, I would make this mistake over and over again writing the problems. I would use some words and students would interpret it, differently than the way I wanted them to. And that's why a lot of times I had to throw out the question because I'm like, they would bring it up to me. I'm like, yeah, I see how you interpret it. And that's not wrong. That's my fault. I should have added some extra language to clarify exactly what I wanted. But if English is not your like main language, it's your second language, that can add even more to that. My previous high school teacher were teaching us normal problems, but she gives us word problems on the test. Yeah. I mean, I think anything on the test needs to be reflective of what was taught, and hopefully she went through some word problems at least in instruction, because I think that's the best way to reflect on what students understood from your instruction. But yeah, just to give word problems and not have any instruction to back it up could be difficult for a lot of students, or might not be the best way to assess as well. What is the number one thing you miss about teaching? Every year I still miss going back to the classroom. I even had the thoughts, like even this year, I was like, man, I miss, I, I think I miss the performance of being able to be in the classroom and having those students throughout the whole year and being able to make those connections with them and being able to help them become a better version of themselves from the beginning of the year. And I miss it. I really do. I miss having those day in and day out interactions with people, because, now, just making videos, I don't get those, I don't get those interactions, that were with students. And, and yeah, that I would say that's the thing I just miss the most. I don't miss the lack of flexibility that it has as a teacher, especially with my 3 young daughters. That kind of quickly brings me back to reality of like, I could not go in the classroom at this current time. Like there's just, my life is too crazy, and I rely too much on having the flexibility to be able to, pick them up and when, school's off and stuff like that. But yeah, I miss just working with students and being able to create lesson plans that, based on how my students are responding to my instruction, to help them better learn the material. I think that's something that's really beautiful about the teaching occupation, is not just like regurgitating, a textbook or a notes, but it's really kind of taking in where your students are and crafting lessons to extract the most out of that lesson to impact, those students. What do you need to learn to get a bachelor's of math and master's degree in mathematics? Well, you're definitely going to need at least up to the calculus series. And then after calculus, every single, university, or college is going to have a different game plan for you. But if you're looking for like what I need to prepare for, I would just focus on getting your way all the way through up a good foundation of everything up to calculus and through calculus. And I feel like if you have that good foundation, then you'll be ready and prepared for, whatever degree program, at the university that you choose to. But yeah, you're definitely going to go through, up through the calculus series. And then after that, everything is going to differentiate between schools. I saw you were live, so I figured that I would say thanks for helping me out with trig identities back when I was in high school in 2018. Thanks. You are very welcome, and thank you so much for, hopping on and jumping in. And let me know. It's crazy since 2018. I mean, obviously, I know I've been a teacher since 2007. I have been making YouTube videos since 2010, but I think it's cool that, that even a video, that some people have helped as they're learning the math could kind of make an impact, on them for not only just their learning, but even in their grades. So I think that's cool, and I appreciate that. Do you have any videos for AP Stats? Unfortunately, no. I never taught AP Stats. Never had to take the course. Only took one course in stats, and that was in college. So yeah, just I don't have much content on stats. We covered a little bit when I was teaching algebra 2, and that was about it, but I do not have a lot of, content on there. Christian 10, pre-calculus is easy for you. Well, kind of depends on when we're talking about when pre-calculus is easy for me. So I took pre-calculus when I was a senior in high school. I got a D and, in pre-calculus, and I struggled pretty hard. And part of my story is, like I didn't really care about math and up through kind of going through high school. So I kind of like faked it a lot going through the way. And so once I got to pre-calculus, that was kind of like the rubber meeting the road. And like, I kind of got exposed, I kind of got like some B's and C's, kind of going to algebra and algebra 2. And then when I got to pre-calculus, like I could not handle it. I was way over my head. But then I decided I wanted to become a math teacher. And so I had to go below pre-calculus going into college, and I had to relearn everything. And obviously being a math teacher, I needed to make sure that I knew what I was doing. And so by the time I got to pre-calculus my sophomore year in college, actually, no, was it my freshman year? Yeah, it was my freshman year. It was the second semester of my freshman year. I was able to get an A. And obviously I put forth the effort. I wanted to do good, right? And I wanted to learn the stuff. And so, yeah, I got an A. But then fast track, I got my math degree, and then I started teaching, and I didn't teach pre-calculus for the first couple of years I was a teacher. But then I was like, oh, well, I got an A, like I understood this content. And then I started teaching it. And then again, I kind of got through back into a loop of like, I don't really know this stuff. Like there's a difference of like being able to do something compared to being able to teach it. And I was a pretty weak math teacher my first couple of years teaching pre-calculus. Like I had to prepare a lot for day in and day out, because even though like I could do some of the problems, to understand and to teach all like the nuances between each and every problem was difficult for me, and I struggled with that. So yeah, I remember there were some students that were pretty upset with me because I was just doing a poor job. But thankfully, I was able to stay as the pre-calculus teacher, and I was able to get better. And obviously, I left teaching before the AP pre-calculus curriculum came out, and I think I really, really probably would have liked that, because I liked teaching AP pre-calc, and I liked that. I mean, I like that. I guess I like that competition. I like that kind of like North Star of like preparing students for that AP exam and then seeing how well my students do. I think there's, some negatives with having AP pre-calc, but that was one thing that I was like, I really like that about the AP exam, right? Having all of my effort that I went throughout the year and then seeing how well my students did. So I think I would have liked that. I think that would have, kept me going. But obviously, I left the classroom for a multitude of reasons. It wasn't just on that, but yeah, I think that would have been fun, to go through that. But yeah, so pre-calculus, kind of easy, kind of hard. It just depends on when you want to talk about when I took it. I'm going to take discrete mathematics this semester. I'm this semester. Just if I wanted to ask, is it hard? Well, everything going into hard it's all going to be relative. I think the cool thing that I liked about understanding discrete mathematics is a lot, even if you don't understand some things from like algebra 1 or algebra 2 or, geometry, like you can still do pretty well in discrete mathematics. A lot of the concepts, are kind of broken down into like separate sections. They don't build as much on them as say like a typical course of pre-calculus or algebra 2. So I think you can get away with having some misunderstandings of continuity and functions, and some of the stuff that you're learning in the traditional learning sense. Obviously, math is math, and there's going to be a lot of similarities and a lot of concepts that is going to be kind of universal, so if you've always struggled with math, this, could be one that would just transcend also to discrete mathematics. But I think discrete mathematics is one thing that I'd kind of put in the category of like geometry and stats. Sometimes students like hate algebra 1 and hate algebra 2, but they do perfectly fine in geometry. And the same thing, they can do perfectly fine in stats, or they can do perfectly fine in discrete mathematics. I think we do need to have more discrete mathematics in our classroom. We still have this big push for students focusing on only going through the calculus curriculum, which, as I mentioned, for the student that want to have a math degree, like, yeah, you have to go through that calculus series, but not everybody's ready for the calculus series. And I think not everybody needs to be pushed into that calculus series. And obviously we've had a big push for, stats. But I also think that discrete mathematics should have a good place in our high school curriculums as well. Oh, no, sorry about that. I almost banned somebody. I haven't started school yet, but is geometry easy? I'm going into 10th grade. So geometry is a different beast. I don't know what you took last year. I'm assuming you took an algebra 1, but it's just completely different. So a lot of students will find some sections of geometry to be easy, some sections to be completely difficult. I would say that one of the more difficult things is you do have to do a different sense of approaching to math and learning a little bit more in geometry. There's a lot more definitions and postulates, and you have proofs, which a lot of students are like, what the heck are we doing here? I actually want to go back to algebra 1 and go through there. I don't like this on geometry. So there is a little bit more like this reasoning and logic that gets through geometry, which I love. That's actually what I love about geometry. But if you're stuck on how algebra 1 was, then you're kind of in a rude awakening. So I can't tell you if it's easy or hard, because some students just naturally prefer, a geometry, kind of course over like the algebra 1, algebra 2, kind of approach to the mathematics. But some students prefer it, and some students are like, thank God I'm done with that course. But I think if you have the fundamentals of algebra like down pat, there'll be some time where you're for some adjustment that you're going to need to make. But otherwise, if you have like the foundation of math down, you'll be perfectly fine. What skills should I master on answering rational functions, equations, and inequalities? Thank you. Factoring. That's the number one reason, in my opinion, why students struggle with rational expressions, rational functions, is factoring. Like, obviously, you think of factoring like factoring quadratics, but so many times when we're simplifying, adding, multiplying, subtracting, we need to make sure we're factoring. When we're graphing, we need to be able to, find the holes and the asymptotes. A lot of times we need to factor. When we're solving, a lot of times, first thing we're doing is looking at, a lot of times, is the factor to simplify them. Same thing with the inequalities. Oh, I didn't want to do that. So yeah, factoring is the number one thing I'd say to focus on. I take the Equiplacer test tomorrow. Been learning all summer. Any advice as I'm trying to place into Calculus 1? Well, awesome. Congratulations. Get a good night rest, breathe. And, there's nothing I can say or do the night before a test that's going to change much for you. You've done the prep work that you needed to do to do your best. And so all I want you to do is make sure that you're mentally going into that test in your highest state. So make sure you get a good night's rest, making sure that you eat some food, so therefore you can perform at your best for that test. And when you get into that test, if you start getting some, anxiety or stress level, just make sure you're like, close your eyes and get some good breaths in, and, take some breaks and do the best you can. You're going to do great. And I wish you the best of luck. My dream is to get a scholarship in a U.S. university. What do I need to get a well-funded scholarship, especially as an international student? Currently, I'm studying the SAT. I need advice. Unfortunately, I'm not the person to give advice on getting into a U.S. university. Sorry, I don't know the process. I don't know if there's another international test that universities look at that might be better or applicable. Same thing with the SAT or ACT, but I'd maybe just go and give that a shot, or just do your research and kind of see. But yeah, I don't have the slight. That's not anything in my expertise. I'm going to start Calc AB, and I wanted to know, what should I pre-study and which pre-calc units I should refresh my mind on. Well, definitely the algebra and the trig. Like, that's where a lot of students still struggle with calculus, is the algebra and the trig. So go back through your pre-calculus and look at a lot of like the algebra stuff. Like, go back through exponential, logarithmic, rational functions, and even just polynomial functions. Like, a lot of that algebra is just expected that you're going to know how to do as you're getting into calculus. And then also go back through your trig, especially like your trig identities and the unit circle, and, evaluating and solving. I would just do a good review of a lot of that. So if you can focus on the algebra and the trig from your pre-calculus curriculum, I think that's going to give you a good foundation as you're walking into AP Calc. I do not know. I'm sure just a Google search can probably give you some good content that you can use to review, as well as some practice problems. But yeah, as you're getting into the GED, like make sure you kind of separate it as working on some review, but also make sure you're doing practice problems. Make sure you're working through some of that stuff. I think that's going to be critically important for you. I just found out a couple weeks ago that a simple exponential equation like 2 to the x equals 8 actually has infinite solutions. Isn't that crazy? LOL. That is kind of crazy. I'm interested to hear more or to go and take a look at that. I don't think I've encountered anything from on there. So yes, that has me a little bit intrigued. But you're never late. I go live each and every Sunday, except for next Sunday, which I mentioned at the beginning of my stream. So I will not be going live next Sunday, but yeah, after that, ladies and gentlemen, I'm here for your guys' questions, and then getting to your math questions here as well. But actually, let me go check. I haven't had. Let me see if there's anybody. Nope. So no math questions entered in for tonight, but that's okay because I know school has not really started for many of you. So, but as we're getting into there and you have some questions that are coming up and you're like, I'm going to need something, then always feel free to show up and submit them at bradmclogan.com/Q&A, and I'll see if I can help you out. What are your thoughts on the SAT being online this year? I think it's inevitable, right? I mean, I think there's so much that goes into having the paper like test. So I think from a financial standpoint, from the SAT College Board or whoever's operating it, it makes complete sense. I don't like it from a student experience perspective, just because I don't know. I mean, I never liked taking tests on a computer and screen. And obviously maybe I'm a little bit more old school, like you guys growing up now, like are a little bit more used to it. But I always just feel like, I don't know, there's just something a little bit different of having things in front of you and being able to write on, even though I know you're not writing on the test, but in your Scantron and whatever else. I think it's just a different dynamic. And so I don't like it. I don't know how much of an impact it's going to be. Like I said, students that are going through the educational system now are a lot more accustomed to taking online assessments and stuff like that. So it could just be my age speaking out. And I know from a logistics and financial perspective, it like makes complete sense for them to do that. Like that just cuts down on so many barriers that they need and costs. So I guess we'll kind of see. We'll see how the data, kind of rolls out. But I was always like, there was opportunities for us to be able to create like tests and stuff in the classroom, and we could do them online and students taking them. But I don't know. I didn't like it. Even though it would have made my life so much easier if I could just like, students take their test, it's already graded. Their grades immediately go in. It goes in the grade book and like, boom, it's done. And like, that's great for me as a teacher, but I never got that like, and again, the SAT is completely different than like me as a teacher, like teaching, right? Because I need to understand what students are not understanding so I can, approach them. But, yeah, I don't feel students did as well on those online tests compared to when we're doing something like paper and pencil in the classroom. I don't know. JT, Mr. McLogan, as a future ship captain, math is a big part of my everyday. I thank you for all you do, sir. I am disciplined and staying strong in math, but do you have any advice for the future math? I'm not sure what you mean for the future math. Edgar, Oh, as a future ship captain, math is a big part of my everyday. I thank you for all you do, sir. I'm disciplined and staying strong in math. Yeah, man, just put in the work. It's like one thing I was making a video actually not too long ago. I made it last week. And one thing I'm talking about is like doing math every day. It's like as a teacher, I'm teaching in the classroom, I'm doing math every day. And the students are like, oh, wow, why are you like so good at math? And I'm like, I'm not that good at math. But when you do something every single day, you're going to be better at it. And then also it's going to show off to other people that are not doing it every day. They're like, oh, you understand and you're making connections that other people wouldn't be able to see because it's a discipline of yours, right? Just like if you're learning how to, um, captain a ship, right? And so I think for students learning and going through math, um, making sure that you are staying relevant in the curriculum and doing math every day, even when your teacher does not assign something, there's always going to be some problems that you can go ahead and practice. There's always being some math that you can go back and review. And you got to stay fresh in things. And again, as I mentioned for earlier in the stream, like I do math every day. I'm still either preparing for videos or making a video, but I also need to sharpen myself as well because I'm kind of stuck in my bubble of the problems that I'm doing for for what I want to do on my YouTube channel. But when I was a teacher, I was always being approached with all these different types of problems that were going to be on a test or that my students need to learn or it's a new curriculum. And so I always constantly had this kind of learning that I needed to be doing to get better at my craft. And I don't have that as much now because I kind of get to decide what and when I'm going to be teaching. So I need to do a better job of pushing myself and challenging myself each and every day. Right? I'm doing the math every day, but I also got to be challenging myself around you. But yeah, that's just what I'd recommend. As far as somebody going into math, is just like keep that stuff relevant. Keep on practicing and making sure you're doing problems, and you'll be fine. Uh, when would you like to know when you will be review the questions? Just want to know. Thank you. Um, well, I don't have any questions that got submitted. I did have a couple problems that were from a previous stream, but that I could go over. But I was just gonna see if there was any other extras that I had, and then I can go from on there. But um, I had a couple of these. I think it was like, I mean, I have a lot, but I don't know. I don't know if I want to break it off into the math just yet. I might have to do. Hmm. I don't know. I don't know if I can. I still wonder if I should do another stream of just doing math. Compare that to just like me answering questions. Because I love answering questions on these live streams. But I don't really love just doing the math. But I love answering math on a live stream as well. So I don't know. I'll have to think about it. I've thought about it. And like, because sometimes once I do the answering questions, then I get really, really tired. And then I have to go and do the math. And then I'm just not like as excited. I'm a little bit more tired. So like my delivery is not great. And then obviously I'll make some mistakes and I'm like thinking through the problems is not as clear. So maybe I might come up with just another live stream day where I'm just going to get through maybe another live stream where I'm actually answering some math or doing some math questions from on there. So then if students want to answer or submit them, they can. Maybe that's something I'll do. I don't know. If you guys have any thoughts, put it down in the comments. I like combining them because it's easier for me. I only have one day where I'm doing my live streams, but I don't want people to wait around for me answering questions because I don't know when I'm going to get to the math. I just like answer your questions as you guys come in. And sometimes, obviously, there's not a lot of like people on this live stream tonight compared to sometimes where it's like I'll be answering questions for like over an hour, just constantly back and forth. And it's like, oh crap, now I got all these math questions I got to get to. And it's like, oh, I don't have enough time, to do now like 10 more math questions. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I think maybe I'll do like a Friday, maybe like on a Friday or something like that. Cause I used to do a Friday video, but maybe I can add in an extra live stream. Yeah. There's so many good questions that come in though. That's my problem. You know, it's like, well, and the tough thing too, like with the live stream, it's a good point, but the problem is, at least with YouTube, the way that it works is even once you go live, um, like YouTube notifications won't go out for like another 15-20 minutes. Like usually I'll get my peak in on a live stream is usually right around like 30 to 45 minutes in. That's where enough people have got notifications and then they go and will arrive on the live stream. So most people are not jumping on a live stream like right when it happens or even being notified on it. So that's kind of the tough thing from on there. But I don't know. I'm going to play around with it. You guys will see. Maybe we'll make some changes. Maybe we'll try like a 30-minute time limit. Maybe I might try like even a Friday, even though like nobody wants to do math on a Friday. Um, that might at least allow me to get through some questions and kind of keep them short from on here. Because yeah, that's kind of good. But then it might also be a good idea, maybe even just switch off some of my live streams where maybe I just do it as a math, like maybe alternate it. Like here's a math live stream, and then do one where it's just like these open live Q and A's. I switched everything over to an open live Q and A just because I found like that was where I felt like a lot of people got the most value out of was actually being able to answer questions. And I hated when I would just be teaching on math and then students are just bombarding me like with questions of like good stuff that I can answer. And I'm like, I really want to answer these questions. Because the math is only going to help a certain segment of the viewing audience, you know. It's always great, obviously, if it's your question. That's awesome. But not everybody is needing or wanting to watch a explanation on, let's say, I don't know, graphing a line or finding the derivative of a function. Like everything is so sporadic or so wide ranging. Um, but but yeah, I don't know. I gotta think about it. And to be honest with you, what I'm probably gonna do is just play around with it and try some different things, and then we'll kind of see how people feedback goes and the math is. Yeah, Secret Crib. It's have a question, go to brianmclogan.com/Q&A. Go and submit it over there. Maybe we can see if we can do this. Yeah, I mean, I've been doing the open live Q&A for like ever since leaving last year. Like that's literally what I was just doing, answering questions. But I think I do need to like just change it up. Um, just because I mean, even though it's awesome to have questions coming in, like throw it in. I think to I think to give people like a little bit more of a variety, like, hey, we'll do some math. I'm going to do 10 questions and then boom, take some questions after that. Right. Or here it's just an open live Q&A. If you have questions, let's go and answer them and go from there. Or maybe even have like a topic, because that's what I used to do is like have topics of conversations and then I get into students' questions. So yeah, I think maybe I'll open up to some different ones. Maybe just have some math Q and A, and then students have questions. Then we'll go for it on there. And it's just if they submit their question, I'm like, maybe I'll keep them for another time, or I'll be like, hey, put this in a, resubmit this like for next week when we'll do answering your guys' questions. All right. Well, hey, Zoe, good to have you on. Okay, very much. Okay, thank you very much. Well, thank you. Have a good night as well. All right. Well, if you submit your question, I will give you a couple more minutes to see if this gets popped up. And let's see. I don't think maybe this was your question. What? Secret Kib, are you King Jim 310? For Regents, I'm struggling sometimes. What's the times? Your videos help me so much. Other struggle word problems too. Actual question. I would need to go back and work through. I need to look at this and just break it down. Again, like probability is not something that I taught a lot of from in there. Like we had it in our algebra 2 when I was a first teacher, and then I went through. So I would just need to go back through and work through it so I can add it. So I will take your question and I will put it on probably maybe let's just set that up for like the math stream. I think it's a good idea. I think maybe I'll just switch that up. We'll just do like a math stream and then we'll do a open Q&A stream, and then we'll just kind of differentiate those. I like that idea. Okay. All right. Well, thanks so much for talking through it. Thanks so much for showing up, guys. Again, next week I will not be going live, but after that, it's game on. So thanks so much, guys, for showing up, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.